feeling great. And then on the way home, I got sick again. My son got sick, and now my daughter's sick. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's the variant that's going. I mean, they can't test for it, so you don't know. But it's it's the same symptoms. So it's like, well, do you have a cold? Do you have the flu? Do you have this? Do you have that? But the doctor's office, when I took her in, actually, I can't believe they said, you got to do a COVID test and a flu test. And I said, no, we don't. She goes, yeah, you do. And I said, no, we don't. And she goes, you're refusing it? And I said, yes, I'm refusing a flu test and a COVID test. She said, well, then the doctor can't diagnose you properly. I was like, that's not true. I was like, what? Why does everything fall around flu and COVID? People can be sick with other things. Anyway, I was not happy.
But now everyone's recovered?
No, she's still fighting it.
Oh.
So I don't know what it is.
Okay. Well, she should feel better.
Yeah.
She should feel better. I'm sorry that's how your vacation and a nice
Yeah,
Florida
it's
trip
been-
ended. And I hope everyone else
okay.
is feeling good. And I agree with Julie that a lot, I know in Chicago, I know New York, places I know a lot of flus or viruses or COVID or something's going around.
Yeah.
Probably a combination of some things. It's definitely that time of year. So everyone should stay healthy and well, you and all your loved ones, and everybody else in the world as well. You know, everyone should just feel a lot better. So we are talking today about strengthening trust in God. That's the topic. And of course, that is a universal topic because we all always need to strengthen our trust in God. I could feel I have my doctorate in strengthening my trust in God, but that doesn't mean I'm done. I'm never done. None of us are ever done because we're humans. And as humans, we grow and we morph and we think we've mastered something. And then we get a new situation that might stress us in a different way. And like, oh, well, I thought I had that under control, but guess what? Nothing's ever under control anyway. So obviously everyone here is a believer. That's why you're on this class. And it's so nice to see so many people that turned out tonight, which maybe is just because this topic pulls, or maybe just because it worked. It's what God wanted. But be it as it may, it's so nice to see everyone that's on here, the ones that come all the time and the ones that come sometimes, the one that comes less than that. We're so happy that everyone made it. And everybody here is a believer, because if you weren't a believer, you wouldn't be on here. But even though we're believers, life can still get to us. And we could get scared, or we could get depressed, or we could just get tense. Not like nervous, crazy tense, just like normal tense, normal annoyed with people around us in our life. In the hard times we go through, and in the normal everyday times, our belief and trust are the gifts that create calm, that create tranquility amid the craziness in our lives, especially nowadays, as Julie was referencing. There's a lot of all different things out there. It's like a lot of noise pulling, and whatever the noise says is lots of different messages from lots of different sources, but it's all has this commonality of being something that evokes fear. Rebecca's saying something. I don't know if I'm supposed to follow it. Becca, did you give your friend the link for the Zoom?
No, I didn't get time. I was doing laundry.
Okay, I was gonna say, because that would be what would be relevant now. I guess otherwise maybe.
I know Carol St. George. Oh my gosh.
So if you Becca, if you give me or Danielle her phone number, then we could add her to the group. That's easy.
Okay.
Okay. If she has, does she? Oh, Danielle said she's going to add her. Okay, great. So I guess you can give her phone number. You could give Danielle Carol's phone number. I think there's a lot of noise around our lives nowadays. It's been building and building and building since March of 2020. And it's just very fear-evoking noise. A lot of different things being said from a lot of different people. And I don't know if it's designed to make us fearful, or it just manages to do that. But there's a lot of noise that creates fear. And we need to have the trust and to have the belief to not fall into that, to stay calm, to stay certain, to stay God focused, to stay tranquil amid all the craziness going on in our world. So how do we do it? So before we discuss how we do it, let's clarify our terms. There's a term of trust and there's the term of belief. Belief and trust are not synonymous, so they sound pretty similar. Belief means I believe it is all from God. It's not necessarily this is what I wanted, but this is God's plan. And this is good because he's only good. He's always good. He never does anything that's not good. It's not necessarily a good that I perceive as good, but I know it's him and he's good. So this is good. Trust means I trust it's going to be the good that I'm looking for, the good that I perceive as good, the good that I want, that I process as good, not just a good on God's plane, but a good on mine as well. So belief is more amorphous, obviously. So it doesn't necessarily force a change in the person. It's more peripheral. That's why our sages say that a thief, when he's going to steal, he prays to God to be successful. So here he is going to steal, like God doesn't let. But he's praying to God to be successful. So he believes in God enough to believe that he's not wasting his time in these moments of prayer, that they're beneficial. So he has belief in God. That's why he's praying. But he doesn't have trust. Because if he had trust demands interchange, and then he wouldn't be able to steal. So in essence, of course, we're aspiring for trust. Trust is like internalized belief. Trust creates change in us, and then trust creates change in our environment. But of course, belief itself is also very, very powerful and very significant. Both belief and even more so trust, the degree we're believing and the degree we're trusting is a pretty good barometer of your general relationship with God. Meaning, the more God is real, the more your trust and belief is strong. And the more you perceive life and its challenges through that prism. If I really trust and I really believe, it doesn't mean that I'm challenge free, but it means that every challenge I'm looking at through the paradigm of this is God and this is good and this is going to be the good that I'm hoping for. But at this moment when it's not, it's still God and it's still good. And therefore, I'm calm and I'm joyous. Those two criteria, those two qualities really reflect your relationship with God. Are you calm? Great. Now we're going to demand more. Are you joyous? Because, like, let's say trust is, let's say you're in a situation where there is zero you can do to help the situation. Like nothing. I mean, anything you could do, you tried and it didn't work, or it's in the process. Nothing more you can do, like zero. So what's left? Well, trust God. Okay, so I mean, that's all that's left. That's all you can do. So you trust God. But if you trust God and walk around like the world is on your shoulders, because it is, and you're sort of schlepping and upset and tense and nervous or depressed or in a bad mood, trigger very easily, I can't say you're not trusting, but it's not complete trust. Because when you're in a space of complete trust, life is good. Even though at this moment, I don't see it yet as good, I know it's soon going to be the good that I'm trusting for. So as such, I'm already excited. If you have something great that's happening in 3 days, you're excited today, something great. You have a little bounce in your step, you're smiling, what's going to happen? Oh, there's really great things happening in 3 days. Well, it's not happening today, but yeah, but it's really great. I'm really excited. I can't wait till whatever happens. So if that's how you look at life, even now that it hasn't happened yet, and you're trusting, you're happy, you're excited, some really great, exciting, awesome stuff is about to happen. It's about to unfold. That is complete trust. But if a person's trusting and walking around like they're burdened by the burdens of the world, we can't say they're not trusting. Obviously, every one of us stretches as much as we can. But that's like the real stretch, because that really reflects such a real relationship with God, that the fact that I'm trusting means I already gave it over to him. And he said, yes. Within the concept of trust, we have an expression, think good and it will be good. That is not, if you've heard it, it's not like just a made up cliche. It is actually a thought in Torah. Positive thought creates a positive reality. Not a reality that I've convinced myself is positive, but actually a reality that I see as positive. Now, in general, of course, thoughts create reality. It's not only if you think good, it will be good. It's not only that trust creates reality. All of our thoughts have a very strong impact on reality, in a positive way and a negative way. If you think bad about another person, if you think, oh, she's so cheap, he's so self-centered, she's so mean, he's so spiteful, whatever, the list could go on, you're actually strengthening the negativity in those people by thinking these thoughts. Or conversely, if you think good, try it with like a child. You just like force yourself to always look at that child and think good. Doesn't mean you're seeing it, but you're thinking it. Oh, they've got so much get up and go. They're so happy. They're so successful. They have so many friends, whatever it is. Thinking the good creates it. When we negative self-talk to ourselves about ourselves, it impacts. Positive self-talk also impacts. So in general, thoughts create reality because we're very powerful people. So here we're actually taking a step further because we're talking about not just thinking, but thinking about God. Thinking how much I trust God, that God's going to make this happen. It's not just a thought like guided imagery of this great, beautiful thing that I'd like. It's a God-centered thought. Thanking God already for the good he's giving, that he's doing this for me. Being grateful to God already for that good. Feeling humbled in front of God for all that good he's doing for me. Feeling excited that God is pouring such love and warmth and embrace on me. So it's a God-centered, trusting thought. So that's amazingly powerful because even a regular thought's powerful. So that really has this power to create the reality that you're trusting in. So this idea of trust creates reality is true for Jews and is true for Noahides, is true for non-Jews. Because for every human, God gives them this ability to trust. And if they utilize the trust for that to create reality. So anybody would like to share any experiences with belief or trust and how it's helped you or not succeeded in helping you in your life?
I think I have an interesting experience about trust. So last night we had a tornado warning, and it was a night that just had several rounds of storms and so on and so forth. And as the sirens are going off, and we're all wearing our bike helmets and underneath our thing and stuff in the bathroom, it's like, like everything's gonna be okay. Like if anything happens, we'll just rebuild. It's fine. And it's like in that type of an instance, it felt so easy to have that trust and like, we're going to be good. It's like, we've done everything we can to do, we're in our helmets, we're in our safe spot, we're good. And I felt trust in that and very comfortable with that. However, it's in that scenario, it seems easier than some of like, are we going to get all of our homeschool done by the end of the year? You know what I mean? It's so interesting. Like
I think that's a very good point, Christelle. And I think you're right. There is that idea of the big dramatic moments versus the daily grind. And I think that's not only true for trust, I think it's true for a lot of things. And I think we've actually brought that out in this class. I think it was in this class in connection to something else. This concept that in that very strong dramatic moment, you can like totally be there and totally be there for God and totally feel God. It's a very dramatic moment. And therefore, like everything's like in high gear. But if it's like the daily grind, like, did we finish the quote of the day? Did we finish the quote of the week? Did we finish the quote of the month? Are we ever going to finish the quote of the year? That in and out grind, it's not drama. It's not like pulling you to your highest space. It's more like wearing. And that's where you can forget. But also sometimes what happens, another version of the story, is that we forget to trust in those little details. Meaning, like, it's not like when you're there, there's a tornado, like there's nothing you can do besides what you did, as you put it. So therefore, what's left? Trust. When you have to work, well, you have to work, and we've got to work harder. Your son's got to comply more. You've got to start earlier. You got to shift the times, make it work for him. You got to shift the breaks to make it work for him. You got to shift the food you're feeding. Like, you forget about the trust element. I had it very strongly one year. I think we shared this with the class. It was Passover, and there's lots of different stringencies people have in Passover. Lots of different stringencies, more than you could ever imagine. So one stringency that my family observes, which is a difficult one, is that, it doesn't sound difficult, but it actually is that we don't buy anything on Passover. Once Passover comes in, we're done. We don't buy anything until the holiday's over, 8 days later. And Passover is all about food. It's just like you got your whole family home, lots of people, lots of guests, and all you do is cook and serve and cook and serve and cook and serve all day long, because what's there doing Passover but eat, right? So there's lots of food, lots of people, and you can't buy anything. I mean, we don't buy anything. So like there's always we're going to run out of this, we're going to run out of that. You don't think you're going to run out of it, and then lo and behold, you do. Like we go through this drama every year. And then like, okay, got to buy more of that next year. So we buy more of that, but then something else, whatever. Very, very, hard to figure. So one year, it has happened many years. It like right away in like the first 2 days, it looked like the oil would never last till the end. And like you use oil all the time because you're frying everything. Make it taste good. You're frying everything. And like, okay, we're not gonna have enough oil. And I'm like, what can I do? We're not gonna have oil. We're not gonna have oil. And I remember very clearly my daughter saying to me, I don't remember how many years ago, but she was young then, and now she's already 21. So it was a while ago. I give about 7 years ago. She said, Ma, you have trust for everything else in your life. Why don't you just have trust that the oil will last the whole holiday? And I'm like, you're right. Like I didn't connect trust with oil. You know what I mean? Like oil was gonna last Passover. It's not gonna last. Again, even if it doesn't last Passover, like, everything would still survive. I would just boil things, bake things, like, I wouldn't think of like trusting God that my oil is going to last. But I thought she's so right. I have to remember that the same I trust God for huge things in my life, I have to trust God that the oil will last. And I trusted, and it did. So I think, Christelle, that's also part of it sometimes, that we forget to trust for those types of issues, and we should. And it happens, it works, it makes life better, and it brings God into all the details. So I think you're right. I think it's a combination of the drama moments versus the mundane moments, and just not always connecting those mundane details with trusting God. But we really should, and it really works. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on their personal experiences? Yes and no, in trusting and believing and outcomes?
I got one.
Mhm.
My daughter was because she isn't anymore, but she was just mean and nasty and slam doors and get mad easily, and she didn't ever mouth off, but just I don't know, just this
Was she by chance a
irritable.
teenager?
No, she wasn't. That's just it.
Four.
She was young. She was young. She's like 8. 8. I think she was 8. And it was just one of these moody, just all the time and whatever. And so my friend just said to me, why don't you start calling her what you want her to be and who you see her as, who God sees her as, and then just trust that God will make her into that. So I started calling her my loving and kind Zoe all the time, all the time. When she'd get up in the morning, oh, my loving and kind Zoe, it's so good to see you. What loving and kind Zoe, what would you like? Made her so mad. Because like every time I said her name, I would say loving and kind every single time. She was like, why do you keep calling me that? And I'm like, because that's who you are. That's who God made you. That's who you are. God, that's who she is. She is now, has been, after about a couple months of just calling it out in her and just saying, okay, God, this is who I know you've created her to be. And I'm going to trust that that's what she's going to be. And that's who she became. I did it with all 3 of my kids. Even my oldest, I was dropping him off at high school. He was a freshman, and I was taking him because he didn't, couldn't drive, and they don't have buses where we are. And he's so fearful, so fearful. And I just started calling him fearless all the time, fearless, fearless, fearless. And now he's not fearful anymore. And my middle son was so prideful, so prideful. And now he I look up to him in being humble. He's that humble now. I mean, just amazing, and amazes me. So God just, that was my Lord, you gave me these kids, and they're going to be who you created them to be, and I'm going to trust you that they're going to be that, and I'm going to speak it over them. And so I just started doing that.
So I think there's 2 things you were doing. You were doing something that I just happened to mention, giving an example of the power of speech and thoughts, that you were speaking and thinking to them their positivity, the good that you perceived or hoped to see. And at the same time, you also pulled on this very strong thing of trusting God. So God, I'm trusting that this girl is going to be loving and kind. And I'm referring to as loving and kind, meaning not like I'm trying to brainwash her, but I'm trying to brainwash myself. That when I look at her, I see, wait, now you're muted. You mute yourself again. I see loving and kind. I see loving and
Yes.
kind.
So my husband, I went to a work thing that he was at, and there's a non-believer that was there. And so I was just telling him what I was doing with Zoe at what I had done with my kids. And so he calls Kevin later, and he's like, no, what did she do? How did she do that? And so after 2 weeks, he called Kevin back, and he goes, what I realized more than anything is that my daughter rose to the expectation, and that I quit getting so upset because I expected her to be what I was calling her out to be. And so it changed both of us. And it did me too. It changed me in calling out in them. So you're absolutely right.
Very powerful. Becca?
I just wanted to say directly to Julie, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's a beautiful, beautiful suggestion, because I have a daughter that she has children, and my grandson comes over and he tells me, which I've seen her temper, I have, and he comes over and he tells me the things that she says and the way that she acts and everything. And I have been in so much prayer for her, but now I have that suggestion, and I will definitely put that to use. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a really practical tip, and it's both, it's trusting God, because every time you say it, you're giving God that message. And it's also reminding yourself how you're looking at this child and the positive energy you're sending them. It's like when your child driving you crazy, give them a hug. You know, if you can't give them a hug, give yourself a hug, you know. But it's just, you feel like doing many other things. So just take all your energy and give them a hug. And that's a far more productive step in the right direction. So it is a beautiful practical tip that we should all share. We should all use, we should all share. And it's very, very much in sync with everything we're saying here. Anyone else has any personal experiences along these lines? All right, so continuing, as we're saying, trust means I'm calm. Trust means I'm not stressed, I'm not worried, I'm not nervous. By the way, Julie's tip also applies for ourselves, meaning negative words have a very powerful impression, just as do positive ones. So like every time you say, I can't handle this, you just, limited yourself a bit more. Imagine every time you want to say, I can't handle this, you say, I can handle this. What did I just say? I can handle this. It shifts the energy. It puts a positive energy out there. It takes the negative and makes it positive. So we do have to be so careful with our words. So again, if you're really trusting, you're calm and you're joyous and you wouldn't have any issue with this. But if you're losing it a little, it's very good to remember that whatever negative you want to say, turn it around and say positive. I'm so stressed. I'm so relaxed. I mean, I'm not really, but I'm so relaxed. I'm so relaxed. I'm so relaxed. I'm so calm. I'm so trusting. I'm so just scream it in the positive instead of the negative. It's much better. Trust means I know it's all God. I know he's only good. I know the nature of one who is good is to do good. So he only does good. So this is good and will become the good I'm looking for. Now, a person could say, again, there's the belief and the trust. The trust is it's the good I'm looking for. The belief is it's all God and it's all good. But sometimes it doesn't seem so good to us what's happening in our life. If I'm trusting and I'm believing, and this doesn't seem good, this actually seems very much the opposite, how do I process that? Like, what happened? Where's God? Why isn't he complying with my request list? So I think when we go through those situations, there's about 4 options. There are probably more. And if anyone has other thoughts, then I would definitely be open to them. But if you're believing it's all God and it's all good, and it doesn't seem very good, or if you're trusting it's all God and it's all good, and it's be the good you want, but this is not what you want, maybe one option is your belief and or trust is not deep enough yet. And that's why it does not seem good. You know, it's God, you know, it's good. This doesn't seem good. Well, maybe my belief isn't real enough. Maybe my trust isn't real enough. Maybe I have to work more on them to create what I'm looking for. Or maybe what I want isn't good for me. Maybe I'm really trusting that this and this is going to happen. I'm going to get this job. I'm going to get this husband. I'm going to get pregnant with this child, whatever. And it doesn't happen. And you're like, wait, God, I'm trusting you. I'm believing in you. Absolutely. Why is this good not happening? Maybe that's just because it's not good for you. I love you. I'm taking all your trust. I'm putting it in the bank account. Don't worry. No drop is going to be lost. But not for what you're believing in, because it's not good for you. Or maybe it is good for you, but not now. Like, you get more dividends later. You know, just like, cooking the meat, then if you leave it in the pot longer, it's going to be better. So like, yeah, I could give it to you now and it's good for you and you're trusting enough and you're believing enough. But if I wait, we'll get more mileage out of this. So sometimes you are trusting and believing enough and God is going to give it to you. It is good for you. There's no reason not to give it to you. But God's waiting for the right timing. And sometimes it's a test. You're trusting, you're believing, it's something good for you, it's something you need, it's something you should get, and God's withholding it as a challenge. That literally we're put through the challenge of I trust and I don't see it happening, and how do I react? And do I go deeper in my belief and say, this is God and this is good? I know I'm trusting. I know it's going to happen. But for today, this is happening instead. I know it's God and I know it's good. I know it's God and I know it's good. And to really, really, especially when it's going through a hard time, strongly, strongly squeeze that concept. Squeeze that concept. So you have the fortitude to keep going and keep believing and keep being calm and keep being joyous. Because it's a test. And God does test us in this area. He tests all of us in this area. It's like the existential reason for all of our existence, to really test us into the degree of how much we really believe in God. And if we're really being tested, that means that we're not going to see it. And we're still going to believe. We're still going to believe. And that really expresses your relationship with God and the truth and the depth of your relationship with God. And this is what we all go through. Some days more, some days less, some weeks more, some weeks less, some months more, some months less. But at some point or another, as a constant of our life, or as in every once in a while, we all go through this. And we just have to remember, wait, maybe I'm trusting or believing not enough. Maybe it's wrong for me. Maybe it's wrong timing. Maybe it's a test. And if it's a test, I don't want to fail. Just like imagine you're by a stop sign and you see the cop waiting. Well, you're going to come to a complete stop. I mean, come on, you see the cop. So maybe there's a test. If this is a test, I'm going to pass. Like, I realize God is creating for me a test. Well, I'm not going to fail now. That would be so silly. Not when I know it's a test. So to really, really stay focused and pass. And pass means you keep believing, you keep trusting, you keep being calm, you keep being joyous, do all the same good things. You keep doing them. And that's how you pass the test. And when we pass the test, all the ucky outer veneer, gift wrapping, window dressing, junk just disappears. And what's left is that good, which was always there under it all. Now, but a person could say, well, this is all really nice that God just sort of listens to us, as long as we're assuming it's good for us, and he will give us as per our trust in him. But what if I made bad choices? What if God wanted to give me good, but I messed up the good God wanted to give me? I have the choice. I've made wrong choices in my life. Maybe God wanted to give me, but I messed it up. So we have to understand that there's like two simultaneous levels. People make choices and God runs the world. And our bad choices don't impinge on God's reality. So I could have made bad choices. I could have freely made bad choices. But if Hashem wants to give me the good, it will come my way, notwithstanding all the bad choices I made. You know, sometimes people seem like they're really going in the wrong direction, and then somehow, I don't know what happened. They just sort of all turned out right and good and really connected to God. How did that exactly happen? We can make bad choices, but God runs the world. So we should never fear that because of bad choices we've made, it's a lost cause. With God, there's no such thing as lost cause. Every day is fresh. Every day is opportunity. Every day could be the day. Now, something that really destroys trust and belief and common sense, serenity, and joy for that matter, is anger. The sages say that one who is angry is like one who serves idols. Why? I mean, obviously we know anger is bad, but they don't say one who is, I don't know, one who gossips is like one who serves idols, or one who steals is like one who serves idols, or one who murders is like one who serves idols. All those things are wrong. Why do they say one who's angry is like one who serves idols? So, because anger implies it's not God running every single detail of the world. Because if it's God, how could you be angry? This is what he's doing. This is the best. So when we get angry, or, well, I don't get angry. I just get like upset. When we get upset, It's denying God. It's literally viewed as a form of idolatry. Now, obviously, it's a subtle form of idolatry. And obviously, in this class, we've discussed idolatry, and it's a very real issue in the worlds of the Noahide to understand. So it's a more subtle form of idolatry, but it's a form of idolatry, literally. Because if you're angry, well, who exactly are you angry at? If this is God's plan, how could you be angry? Either you're thinking it's not God, and that's why you could be angry. So that's the idolatry. Or you think you do think it's God and you're angry. Like, how could he be doing this to me? I'm so good. Why is he doing this to me? And so you're angry at God. That's also a form of idolatry. You're doubting him. And even if it's not anger, but if it's upsetness, it's more subtle than anger. So it's got more subtle, it's smaller, but it's going along those same lines. Well, how could this happen to me? I'm so good. I try so hard. Why is this happening to me? Why is this messing up my life or my family or our income or our style of life? Why is God doing this? I don't know. But he's God and he's good. Becca?
Okay, so I have a habit that I got from my father, but I get angry at myself more than anybody else usually. I get angry at other people too, but mostly at myself. Like, I'm not learning enough, I'm not retaining enough, I'm not why can't I get this? Come on. Or if I spill, knock something over, what is wrong with you? And why are you making more work for yourself? Blah, 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 so I don't know how that goes to,
It's a problem.
I don't know how it goes to idolatry is what
Well,
I'm.
in essence, any form, in other words, let's pretend it was anger, not even necessarily at a person, just at life. Okay. The person spills and they're angry. I'm not even say they're angry at themselves. They're just angry that it happened. I'm not angry at anyone else. I spilled. I'm not angry at me. I'm just angry. Well, there's a God. And if you spilled, that means God wanted you to spill because that's why you spilled. No, I spilled because I'm a klutz. It doesn't make a difference how clumsy you are. There's a God. If there's a God and he wants you to spill, you're very agile and you spill. And if there's a God and he doesn't want you to spill, you're very clumsy and you don't spill. Like, you never take God out of the picture. So if the anger is at another person, or the anger is at the event, oh my gosh, I had invested all this money and the stock market crashed and I lost everything. And who am I mad at? The stock market, the economy? I don't know. I'm mad. Maybe I'm mad at myself for investing in the stock market, like whatever. So self-anger or anger at the event or anger at another person, it's all the same thing. It's all anger. So if I'm angry at myself because I spilled, or I'm angry because something spilled that I happen to do, or I decide to be angry at my husband because he was in the room when I spilled, so I got to be angry at somebody. It can't be me, so it can be him, or angry at the child because I'd rather hate my child than at my husband. It doesn't make a difference who the anger is directed to. Yourself, the thing, the cup, the floor, the liquid, your husband, your child. It's all the same thing. If it's all God, again, I'm not saying this is easy. Obviously, it's easy to sound like it easy as we're having a class and we're speaking philosophically and theologically, but this is meant very practically in the details of our life. And I'm not saying it's easy. Of course, I'm not trying to make it sound easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It's constant work for all of us. It's very valued work. It's very powerful work. It's work that creates reality. But literally, you are clumsy and you spill. And that's exactly what God wanted. No, I'm clumsy. I spilled. Well, should I take responsibility for myself? Why am I blaming God that I spilled? You could be absolutely clumsy. But if you spilled, God wanted the spill to happen. How do you know that? Because it happened. Because it happened. The fact that it happened means God wanted it to happen. Because if God didn't want it to happen, it would not happen. So it doesn't actually make a difference whom the anger is directed at. Any anger is an expression of the same, not remembering it's all God. Are you getting mad at him? Ultimately, it's his fault. So are you getting mad at him for it happening? Well, no, why not? Well, I mean, he's God, I'm not gonna get mad at him. Okay, so then how could you get mad? It's him. And so sometimes, it's all him. It's all good. It's all for our good. And sometimes you go through it and you see the gain. You went through something hard and you do see how you grew. You see how you became more sensitive. You see how prayer became more meaningful, or how you're more empathetic, or how you have more patience, or how you're a better person. Like, you can see it even, but you still feel, I don't know if it was worth all that pain. I know it was God. I know it was good. I know it was painful. I know I passed. I know I'm done with it. I know I gained, but I don't know that it was all worth it. And then you just have to tell yourself that you don't know the reason why your soul's in this world. Maybe specifically for that gain. Maybe your soul is in the world for you not to get upset at yourself when you spill something. Maybe your soul is in the world for you to look straight in the eye of whatever's bothering you and saying, this is God. This is good. I'm not going to let this upset me. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be joyous. I'm going to be calm. Maybe that's the reason you're in the world, with that specific challenge in mind, or the general principle. And that's why it's really something that's relates to all of us. We all are working on this. And it's an endless work, because it could just get on finer and finer and finer levels. And it's so good for us when we're there, because we're happier, more joyous, more calm, more centered people. And what's your other choice? To be angry and to be a basket case and to be nervous and to be tense and to think that you create reality and you spill because you're a klutz and you lost your job because of this or because of that, or, like, it doesn't lead for a happier life. It doesn't lead for a better life. This leads for a much happier, much better, and very, very God-centered reality. So based on the faith that it's all God, He's the only mover and shaker. If you have a challenge, are you supposed to go and check out whatever natural opportunities you have to solve it? So it's interesting when Julie said that mother-in-law, I believe, was ill and she didn't want to take a COVID test and she didn't want to take a flu test, but she did want the doctor to be involved. So she was, for whatever reason, all of us have various reasons why I didn't ask, but she was like, I don't want to go that route, but I am willing to go this route and trying to help her. So how does that work within our trusting God? Like, in other words, if someone trusts God and someone's sick, are they supposed to go to doctors? If someone trusts God and they lost their job, are they supposed to search the want ads? If someone trusts God and they're feeling like unhappy with themselves, are they supposed to try to do things to add passion and joy to their life? So the answer is yes, in limited doses. Meaning, if someone lost a job and they're going crazy. I mean, I was going crazy. How are they gonna pay their mortgage in a month, or how are they gonna put food on their table this week? Very practical. It's not a simple, not a small thing. Someone's not well. Well, I mean, of course you're going crazy and you're gonna look for a doctor and look for a better doctor. I mean, this person's sick and this person's seriously sick, and it's so if we allow ourselves to drown, so to speak, in nature, in all that the world is saying we should do, and all the conflicting advice and all of this and all of that, we lost it. Because remember, my premise is it's all God. It's only God. And He's good. So should I do nothing? It's all God. It's only God. He's good. What am I bother schlepping to a doctor? I have to waste the time making an appointment. I have to waste the time driving and parking and getting there and being back. And I have to go take these medicines. Like, why should I bother? Good question. We bother because God wants us to bother. We bother because God created nature and he wants to uphold nature, but he doesn't want us to worship nature. So it's a very fine line of upholding nature, but not worshiping nature. So you look for a job for a certain amount of time a day, and that's it. You move on. You check out whatever you have to medically, and then you move on. So you don't not do it at all. Like, what should I bother taking pills for? If God's going to cure me, God's going to cure me. If he's not going to cure me, he's not going to cure me. It's all in his hands. And those are very good hands. If I'm supposed to live, I'm living. I'm not supposed to live. That's also God's goodwill. It's all him. But what should I bother getting involved in his plans for? Because God created nature and God wants you to uphold nature. But at the same time, God doesn't want you to worship nature. God wants you to worship God. So therefore, you make what I call a weak attempt. Don't make a strong attempt. Don't waste your energy on making a strong attempt. But don't make no attempt, because then you're sort of forcing God to make a miracle. And God doesn't like to make miracles. He doesn't like to break nature. He likes to work within nature. He made nature. He likes nature. So because he made nature, because we as human beings are supposed to uphold his nature, work within nature, but minimally. Just enough to do due diligence, but not, as a phrase they always use nowadays, out of excessive caution. Just due diligence. You can put a check on your chart. You did it. And then add in your spiritual service of God and adding your trust. So make a weak effort in the natural realm because God created nature and we're upholding it. Don't do more than that because you don't want to worship nature. You want to worship God. Add, strengthen your trust, and add in your spiritual service to put really the currency on the table to create the miracle you currently need.
What are you saying? What is your example of worshiping nature?
What I mean by worshiping versus upholding nature is, I mean, it could be in any realm. It would be like some people, but I like to say medically, it's just a simple example, but I mean, it's in anything. If someone's sick and they say, well, I'm a believer. Why should I waste my time going to a doctor? Why should I waste my time taking medicine? Why should I make my time having procedures, having surgery, having tests? If God wants me to be healthy, I'll be healthy. If God doesn't want to be healthy, I mean, I trust God and that's what's best for me. That sounds very, very spiritual, but it's wrong. Why is it wrong? Because God created nature and God wants us to follow the rules of nature. Okay, fine. So I'm supposed to go to doctors. Yep. And I'm supposed to follow what they tell me. Yes, you are. But then a person can fall into the trap of what I call worshiping nature, which means running and running and running and doing more research and a better doctor and a new medicine and a new procedure and a this and a this and a this and a this. And like, as if the doctor's going to cure you. No, the doctor's not going to cure you. God's going to cure you. So if God's going to cure me, why did I go to any doctor in the first place? Because God wants you to. But if you start running and running and running and running and running and being your own doctor and investigating all this work, God's going to cure you. So all that effort you're putting into the doctors, put into God. Serve him more, add in prayer, add in charity, add in study, add in good deeds. Do more to create spiritual currency to produce the healing and add more in your trust. So do I have to go to a doctor at all? Absolutely. Do I make that my occupation? No. So that's the balance of, the extreme of like, I don't want to have to deal with any of that. Whatever God wants is what's going to be. And that's great. No. Okay. So let me make sure it happens through nature. No. So do what one needs to do in nature without being excessive about it, and be excessive in adding in spirituality and trusting God. Dixie, did that answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay. So what part didn't it answer?
Well, to me, nature is not like the doctors and everything. Nature is like the pastures, the fields, the
Okay, so I was
grass,
using the word nature.
trees.
That's a good point. I meant nature as like the ways of the world, how God set up his world. So it could be nature in terms of natural healing. It could be nature in terms of chemotherapy or surgery. To me, I group them all under nature, meaning as versus just a God miraculous healing, a natural healing through any of the natural modalities. But
What you're
thank you.
saying is basically natural. It's, to me, nature is trees, flowers, plants.
Right. So I meant
Which,
natural.
and on that note too, though, trees, flowers, and plants can be a healing. So
Yes,
I guess it could be nature. I
it could
guess
be.
it.
They could be. Absolutely, they could be.
Mhm.
So what if you are really strong and really trusting and really calm and really joyous? You're amazing. But your husband's not on the same page, or someone like that in your world. And then it's like hard, especially if you're doing things together, So you are together supposed to create a certain reality, but you're in more the like, we did our part in the natural world and now we're going to trust God. And he's like, what do you mean? We got to do this. We got to do this. And we're going to do this. And I'm like, no, God's going to take care of it. I just did what I was supposed to do to give him a vehicle so he could work naturally. Like, how do we deal with that? So sometimes, of course, as the woman, we just really try to strengthen what's going on inside of ourselves, because that hopefully trickles into our home, creates an atmosphere that will penetrate others. Sometimes it's really effective to talk about it a lot. Like, not as if you're trying to preach to someone else, but as if you're like sharing about yourself and your struggles and what gave you inspiration and your work. That sometimes a person, if you're talking about yourself, a person can hear it. If you're talking about them, they don't want to listen. If you're talking about yourself, people can hear it. And it's sometimes a very effective way to share. And sometimes you take on doing an extra good deed in that person's merit to help them with their trust. Because sometimes we just are turning to God and asking God to help this person access a trust in God. Any other thought? I mean, I have a lot more, so I don't want to keep going because I know I'm not going to finish too soon. But any other thoughts on any of this? How you see it applying to your life? How you've used trust or how you haven't, but you'd like to start based on what we were discussing now?
Girl, I'd just like to say, I am somewhat the queen of research, and I can really see where I can research something into the ground. And so I really appreciate that, like, the balance of it all. So really and truly, thank you for that.
Sure. Anyone else? Any other thoughts or reflections on any of this?
So where I struggle with trust is I'll go through kind of like these phases where it's all God, it's all good, I have to trust. And then I start thinking of horrible things that I know have happened in my life or other people's lives. And then I get in this slump of, yes, I trust God, I know it's all good, but it might not seem or feel good to me at the time. So how do you get past that? I don't know if it's superficial of me or not, but like, for example, I'll be worried or stressed about something and I think, okay, it's all God, it's all good, despite what happens and how I see it, but it can feel really, really bad at the time and you may never see how it's good. So that's where I get stuck sometimes in trust.
I think I'm glad Danielle raised it. And I think happens to a lot of people. Someone in a class I gave this morning asked a very similar question. It was a different topic, but somehow it morphed into this slightly in a certain part of it. I think so. Danielle raised a very, very true question. And I want to separate her question into two aspects. She said, I'm going to phrase in my own words, I think is what she meant. She wants to trust, she knows it's all God, she knows it's all good, but she knows sometimes really bad things that happen to people, to good people, or she knows she herself has had some very unpleasant things happening to her. So how can she be sure that here it's going to work out? And then she could panic because she could be scared. So I think three things. First point is in terms of other people. In terms of other people, basically there's two aspects to the answer. One is we never philosophize away another person's pain. So if someone else is suffering, we never think it's all God and it's all good. That would be like cruel. So if someone is suffering, you turn to God and you complain. And that's what God wants you to do. That shows you're human and you're caring, you're compassionate and you're loving and you believe in him and this is his child. And God, what are you doing? This person is such a good person. This person is your child. This person loves you so much. What are you doing in your world to this person? Or what are you doing in your world in general? That's exactly what you're supposed to do. That in no way is lessening your trust. It's the appropriate desired response. In terms of your trust, what you say when you see other people suffering is, besides of course turning to God, it's like, what are you doing to your world? But to yourself you say, I have no clue, because you truly don't. You don't. You have no clue if the person trusted. You have no clue if what's happening is good for the person. You have no clue how this person is processing what's happening. So much in life is not what happens, but how we process it. There can be people that are so happy and we think they have horrible lives. There are people that are so unhappy and we can think they have amazing lives. So it's nothing to do with your understanding what's going on in someone else's life, because you have no understanding what's going on in someone else's life. So it's not a challenge to God and trust, because you know nothing. You don't know if they trust. You don't know if what God's doing is the best for them. You don't know if they're perceiving it as the best. Like, we don't know anything. You could speak to people. I do like marriage work with people, and you can see people and it's like, it's not what happened at all. It's totally how they're responding to what happened. And that's true for all of us in all of our lives. It's how we respond to things. So you could think it's a bad life and they could think life is very good. You could think it's very good. They could think very bad. So we're trying to just take apart the issue. We're unknotting it, and I'm going to come out with 3 points. So one section is other people and seemingly bad stuff that has happened to other people. A, don't philosophize, complain to God. And B, at the same time, be aware that I don't know what's going on in anyone else's life. I barely know what's going on in my own life. Definitely don't know what's going on in anyone else's life. And I don't know. Maybe this is exactly what they wanted. Maybe they're so happy. I have no clue. Maybe a million maybes. I don't know. So I'm not even going to start, because it's totally beyond my ability to understand someone else's life. Then you go to your own life. You can say, well, I could talk for myself. I know I've trusted, and I know I've suffered. I know I've been through painful things, and I've really trusted. So maybe now also I'm going to trust it. It's going to be very painful. So then I think you say, okay, trust means I'm going to be positive that this time it's going to work out. And then you go to those like 4 points I mentioned before of like, well, maybe that other time I thought I trusted, but it wasn't a deep enough trust for the situation. Or maybe it really was. But what God did for me was actually what was the best for me, for real, for me as a human being, not in some godly reality. And what I thought was good wasn't good. Or maybe actually, if I think about it later, he did give me what I was trusting in. And maybe just he couldn't give it to me then for various factors. But as soon as it opened up spiritually or physically, he actually gave it to me. And actually worked out. It's actually worked out the best way possible. Imagine someone who's, I don't know, she wants to get married. She's ready to get married. All her friends are getting married, and she's waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And then finally, when her husband shows up on the scene a little late, she realizes, oh, he's 2 years younger than me. He wasn't even thinking about marriage until like 3 months ago. And so God, if he's my mate, there was nothing God could do to wait till this guy got his act together. I mean, so to speak. And so that's why it's happening now and not 5 years ago. So I went through 5 painful years, but it's not that I wasn't trusting enough. It's not that God wasn't planning on giving it to me. It just was a matter of timing. And now's the right timing. So I went through pain, but it wasn't that God didn't want to give it to me. It wasn't that I wasn't supposed to get it. I did get it at exactly the moment I could get it. And maybe sometimes you go through painful things and those are challenges. And just say, okay, that was a challenge. And I hope I passed the challenge. So now God doesn't need to give me a challenge. And don't worry, God's got those little challenges all the time. So I could pass all those little challenges and then not have to go through something now that is not going to be what I'm hoping for. Then the third piece of unknotting this is trust means trust, which means saying, no, this time it's going to be good. This time it's going to be good. And if you've had times in the past where you've trusted and it hasn't seemed good, it's harder work. It's deeper work. But that's what trust means. And that's the work of trust. And trust is work. Again, we're making it so logical and so rational, and trust is work. And trust is very deep work, which is why I'm saying God responds so strongly to real trust, because you are really working when you are really trusting. So that's the work of trust. And the fourth point, but I told you I'm going to tell you three, is that sometimes we have to forgive ourselves for being human. And that we are human. And that our minds are telling us it's all God, and it's all good, and it will all be exactly the good we want. And then my heart skips a beat and says, but I remember what happened, or what happened to so-and-so with this, and I'm just scared. And then I say, okay, I forgive myself for being human. I'm going to breathe through this one, and then I'm going to continue trusting. And sometimes we just have to look at it and say, I'm a godly person. I happen to have a human body. And my human body sometimes crashes, but then I breathe and pick up the pieces. And that's how I would try to untangle that tangled knot inside of you. Other people complain to God, but say, I've got no close guy on their life. For yourself of previous experiences, think of those 4 options we discussed. Understand that now trust means to trust and not protect yourself from trusting. It's almost like if I don't trust, then I'll not get hurt the same way as if I trust. But that's trusting, is to make yourself vulnerable enough, naive enough, trusting enough that you just take it as it's all God, it's all good, in the most childlike way. I remember once my son, I could say his name, yelled the name because I don't know if you know, so I know Yosef Yitzchak, very holy child. Mine is still very holy as he's an adult now, 25. I remember when he was a child, and there was a child in the community who was sick, and everyone got together to pray for the child and to say Psalms. And Yosef Yitzchak, he was young, but he was a very holy child. So he said, I think, the whole book of Psalms. And he came back. I hadn't gone to the gathering because I guess I had some baby at home. So I had probably said Psalms at home myself. And he saw that I was like, still like, looking worried or whatever. And he's like, Mommy, why are you worried? I just said the whole book of Psalms. Like, he's going to be fine. And I probably said something like, God willing. But by him, it was, what do you mean, God willing? I mean, what's the question? And that's like a childlike relationship with God. And that's what we strive to have. A childlike trust means I'm not going to remember past times and past hurts and past this and past this. I'm not going to protect myself. I'm not going to couch my trust in realistic terms. No, I'm just going to trust. That's what it means. And then again, the fourth point is forgive yourself for being human. Okay, so we'll stop at this point. God willing, to be continued next week. I hope you all have a very good week, a very calm, centered, positive, joyous week, remembering every spill is just God at work. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Shavuot Tov.